We're reading Introduction to Panim Meirot u'Masbirot, first column. You can also watch us on, of course you're watching us on Kab TV, and you can ask questions live. Selected questions will be aired. The arrangements found in the writings of the Ari were arranged and organized by a third generation. We're reading on page 444 in Kabbalah for the student. In a third generation in 3 times, and by 3, the first compiler was the sage Mari Tzemach. He lived at the same time as Mara Zulai, who passed away in the year 1644. A large portion of the text came by him, and he arranged many books from them. The most important among them is the book Adam Yashar, in which he collected the root and the essential teachings that were at his disposal. However, some of the books that this Rav had compiled were lost. In the introduction to his book Kol Berama, he presents all the books that he had compiled. The second compiler is his disciple Maharan Papoish. He did more than his Rav. Since some of the books that were held by the sage Maharash Vital came by his hands, and he compiled many books. The most important among them are the books Etz HaChaim, the Tree of Life, and Pri Etz HaChaim, Fruit of the Tree of Life. They contain the entire scope of the wisdom in its fullest scene. The third compiler was the sage Maharash Vital, the son of Mahar Chaim Vital. He was a great and renowned sage. He compiled the famous 8 gates from the patrimony his father had left him. Thus we see that each of the compilers did not have the complete writings. It heavily burdened the arrangement of these issues, which are unsuitable for those without true proficiency in the Zohar and the Tikkunim. Hence, few are those who ascend. Item 9.
Any questions, please? So, we learned it, right? That since there was a dispersion of all the writings of the Ari, they weren't all existed as one together, and no one could put them together. But at least that was the reason that they weren't able to come to the right assembly of the writings. And there's a question, because even if all of them had all the writings of the Ari, and they had the time and everything, would they be able to put it together? Because it has to be a certain soul, unique as the soul of the Ari, in order to see the full depth of these things and incorporate it into oneself. It's a soul that contains the whole of creation in it, all this net, this mesh of Malchut of Ein Sof. Therefore, Baal HaSulam says that in addition to having all the writings, Kabbalists before him also had it after the writings were put together. The problem is that there needs to be a unique soul, and he was privileged with the conception of the Ari's soul, and this is what allowed him to publish Talmud Sefirot and all the articles, and generally see the full extent of the wisdom and present it to the generation to be used for its correction. Yes.
He says that the reason for not having these writings that the exalted are few.
No, those who can ascend are few because the writings of the Ari were not put together. So what's the cause and effect? What, you're trying to turn the issue upside down? He says that the writings weren't all in the hands of one person. Therefore, they couldn't be assembled correctly by any of them, because all the words and writings of the Ari were scattered in the way he taught. Things, some of them here and some of them there. And Rav Chaim Vital wrote all of that. The Ari himself didn't write anything. He only spoke. And Chaim Vital wrote. Look how much he wrote. It's about 20 volumes, eventually, that later were published. And that's just a year and a half of studying all the wisdom from the Ari. So we have to understand what happened there. It's unbelievable. Some sort of conveyance of the wisdom, not through the mind. And he was still young, and he wasn't able to digest all of that. So only after him, and it's mostly the third generation. You understand how much time went by? The writings were taken out of the grave, and from another hidden place, they were assembled, and then somehow they started sorting them out according to how much they took out. They took something out of the hiding, sorted out, and published a book. Then they took something else and published something else. They took it out in portions, and then they opened the graves a few times and until they had it. And therefore all the writings of the Ari, you open a page and it starts with the flavors of mitzvot, or he just starts, boom, from a certain point without any introductions, nothing in advance, just starts, delves in. And that's because that's how the writings were assembled, and in the way they were taken out. They just checked them for somewhat of a general order, and that's it.
Seemingly, if we say that the light of the Torah reforms, then why were the writings that we had back then were not sufficient in order to perform the corrections? He says that since they were not arranged correctly, there were few of ascent.
Because you don't have a clear, simple, easily presented method in a way that one who starts from the very beginning can enter it and keep going and advance. Even a person who yearns for achieving corrections doesn't know where to start. The writings themselves don't bring him to, how to put it, to correctly detect the place of the breaking. What exactly needs to be corrected? How to receive the light that reforms? What is the correct order of the advancement of the soul, Ibur, Nikah, Mochin, and so on? In such scattered writings before the order that Baal HaSulam put together and created, it was very difficult. Of course, there was a great spiritual revolution taking place, but still, they weren't able to easily advance with it. Yes.
In what manner do the writings bring a person to draw the reforming light in order to scrutinize the point of breaking?
We don't understand the kind of souls that existed in the past. I understand your question. The question is correct. Today, if I bring Talmud HaSfirot from Baal HaSulam to someone, he'll read it and he won't understand what's required of him. He won't understand what's going on. I need to give him articles, free choice, Matan Torah, Arvut, all the writings of Baal HaSulam that first speak about reality in general, our world, the development from above downwards, why we exist the way we do in our world here, what's happening to men in this world, what is our nature, under what driving forces. So man begins to understand that he exists in the force of egoism, and if he fixes it, corrects it, then he discovers spirituality, godliness, that he needs to discover by being given the environment here, the society towards which he can examine himself, whether he's in reception or bestowal, and the spiritual world is complete bestowal. You have to give him many, many articles, explanations about where he is. And after all those explanations about where he is, you explain to him what he needs to do, how to fix his attitude in a group. After he's in a group and realizes that he somehow needs to connect with them, then he needs to think, okay, so I need the light that reforms, that will connect me to others. In that way, I'll achieve the goal, opening my eyes. Then I'll reveal the quality, the force of bestowal, and that's called creator. The force of bestowal, if I grow it, what will I reach? Bestowing. So this is what I want. So one must realize, okay, I don't want it, but if I'll engage in it, the light will influence me, and then I will want it. Meaning to want something I don't want at the moment. So he takes that direction, and by self-guidance, he advances towards things that he doesn't want at the moment, of course, but he understands that there's no choice, and that's the truth, and so on and so forth. So you build a system that will correct you. I understand that I'm a kid, that I'm broken, that I don't want anything of this. I just want to shut my eyes, and that's it. However, with all that, it can't be. You have to grow, you have to become conscious, build a system that will take care of you, that by the influence of society upon man, which is really the only leverage, the only device by which you can grow, by that I want to grow myself. And that's how a person builds an environment for himself, which is the teacher, the books, the group, dissemination, the surrounding light eventually, that influences him and changes him. So you first need to bring a person more or less as much as he can grasp. That's also something else. But he builds this whole picture in a very gradual way, where he is, how to advance, by what. Every time it disappears, then it reawakens, or one must design oneself from within. And by all these explanations, you're actually building the infrastructure for him. Now he tells you, okay, I'm ready, I'm willing. What to do? What do you mean, ready? You have a group? Sort of. Okay. What else do you need? The light that reforms, that will influence you and the group, and you will become integrated, connected, incorporated. In that first integration you achieve, you attain spirituality. Then you come to the writings of the Ari, and you study them in order to draw the light that reforms. As Baal HaSulam tells us in item 155 in the introduction to Talmud Sfirot, which is what he wrote as an interpretation, an organized interpretation for the writings of the Ari, to draw the light that reforms. So he tells you now, why did Kabbalists write it? To bring you the light. As much as you try to understand it, you won't, but you will be able to attain the light. So now, especially, we have a great importance in the phase of preparing the person to use the writings of the Ari, or the writings of Baal HaSulam, Tes in short. And there's the writings that talk about the spiritual structure. Before that, you have to prepare the person, otherwise he doesn't know. You want me to read? I'll read. But he doesn't feel the importance of it. He needs to answer himself in a very precise manner. Why do I need it? What for? What will I get out of it? So that all requires prior explanation. What do we need? How do we stabilize ourselves correctly? Myself, the teacher, the group, the books, dissemination, books of Kabbalah, the light that reforms, reforming me to what? To where? To what? All of that I should see as a process that's somehow clear. Somehow, at least I can sketch it for you. So you can look at it on a piece of paper and see that there's a certain logic here that is really unbreachable, and it just works that way. And this way you can understand why everything happens, why the suffering, all of human history. You can add everything to that picture, all the other components. However, in previous generations, you didn't have to tell that to a person because people were purer. They said, the Torah is what I want. Attaining spirituality, I want that. That's it. Even Rabash used to tell me, even in the beginning of the 20th century, when he was still a little boy, he was born in 1905, 1906. So he said, if you would tell people, meaning those who study the Torah, that they can attain spirituality, most of them would leave everything they had and go for it. Because what did they have in life? They lived in poverty, and they engaged in Torah, and that's it. We don't understand how the world has changed within the last century, from one end to the other. People who were tied to the ground, to the soil, to their village, and so on, it turned into a completely different world. The ego leaped and changed the world. So the people in the time of the Ari, didn't need all those introductions as we need today. Just let us study. But the writings were organized in such a disrupted manner that they still raise the question, because you can't give a person just anything without any beginning or an end. One must connect it to himself and have something in common with it. Well, whatever happens, that's how it is. Whether you understood this or not, it doesn't matter. Yes, Danny.
And what about the articles of the Rabash? It looks like a third kind of sort of writing, like of inner work.
No, the Rabash articles is first and foremost. When a person comes with the question of what for and why, what do you explain? You tell him about the deficit, the ego, how to correct it. You're telling him about free choice. In fact, the free choice is really one of the foundational articles, the seminal articles. And along with it, you give him the essence of the wisdom of Kabbalah, which is discovering the Creator. Because why do I need to discover the Creator? There's a question about it too. There are a couple of questions that one comes after the other, or in connection with the other, and you have to reveal all of that. So you need a couple of Baal HaSulam articles to design the picture, what exists, what else can be attained, why do you suffer, what is the world itself, and so on. After you've fixed and put together all that general picture, then you tell him how to advance. How to advance? You explain first about the shattering, and then you give him the Rabash articles. How to correct the shattering, meaning you bring him to designing himself in the society, and that's the broken place. How to correct the broken place? When we study together in order to draw the light that reforms, which will correct us. So the Rabash articles are something that is indispensable. And after you're there, after you're in the environment and you learn what the environment is and how to draw the light that reforms, by what intention, then you begin to learn in the study itself what are the elements of creation: Kli, light, Masach, restrictions, 3 lines, how we advance. If the light influences us, how will we advance by it? So then you, as if follow the light, the actions it needs to take upon you. That's the way. And I wouldn't say that the consistency here is so important, because a person always falls into different states, and new people come all the time, and they start from the middle after we already started reading something. It doesn't matter. It all works together, because everything is a result of the integration, the incorporation of the souls, of the vessels. So it's not that critical with what article you begin and where you are and so on. But in general, it is desired to have a more or less organized order, just like we should create in our learning center for new people who come to study.
Item 9. In return for that, we're privileged by him to have been rewarded with the spirit of the Baal Shem Tov, whose greatness and sanctity are beyond any word and any utterance. He was not gazed upon and will not be gazed upon except by those worthy that had served under his light, and they too only intermittently, each according to what he received in his heart. It is true that the light of his Torah and holy wisdom are built primarily on the holy foundations of the Ari. However, they are not at all similar. I shall explain that with an allegory of a person who is drowning in the river, rising and sinking and drowning people as drowning people do. Sometimes only the hair is visible, and then a counsel is thought to catch him by his head. Other times his body appears as well, and then a counsel is thought to catch him from opposite his heart. So is the matter before us. After Israel has drowned in the evil waters of the exile in the nations, from then until now they rise and fall, and not all times are the same. At the time of the Ari, only the head was visible. Hence the Ari had troubled in our favor to save us through the mind. At the time of the Baal Shem Tov, there was relief. Hence, it was a blessing for us to save us from opposite our heart. And that was a great and true salvation for us. And for our many sins, the wheel has been turned over again in our generation, and we have declined tremendously as though from the zenith to the nadir. In addition, there is the collision of the nations, which has confused the entire world. The needs have increased, and the mind grew short and corrupted in the filth of materialism which apprehends the lead. Servants ride horses, and ministers walk on the earth. And everything that is said in our study in the above-mentioned Masechet Sotah has come true in us for our many sins. Again, the iron wall has been erected even on this great light of the Baal Shem Tov, which we have said illuminated as far as the establishment of our complete redemption. And the wise at heart did not believe in the possibility that the generation would come when they could not see by his light. Now our eyes have darkened, we have been robbed of good, and when I saw this, I said, it is time to act. Thus, I have come to open widely the gates of light of the Ari, for he is indeed capable and fit for our generation too, and to our better than when.
This means that what the Ari did, what Baal Shem Tov did, all the things they did through the heart and through the mind was building the approach to man's correction, and then Baal HaSulam took what they did and designed the third line here, and thus brought us an accessible, organized method. And only thanks to him and with the right use of his method we can gain correction. Okay? What's not clear?
We see that Baal HaSulam does write and continues what the Ari says. I never heard that he is connected in any way to the Baal Shem Tov.
The work comes from Baal Shem Tov. The wisdom comes from the Ari. So, in this book that he writes as, let's say, his first status of time of bringing the organized method of the Ari, he says that he follows the Ari because the book is written according to the book Tree of Life of the Ari. So he as if doesn't take Baal Shem Tov into account now and takes the writings of the Ari and puts them together in order to prepare it for our generation. However, all in all, in his method, in the writings he wrote, besides Talmud Asfirot and Panim Meot Masbirot and Pticha, preface to the wisdom of Kabbalah, and preface to the commentary of the latter, let's say besides those four writings, all the rest that he wrote about man's inner work is where he used Baal Shem Tov's revelations. So here he refers to the book itself. So he says, I went to book to the Ari, and I wrote this book according to the writings of the Ari. What else?
A student from Israel is asking, how are the laws, what do the laws and the group have to do with the reforming light if it comes to us only through the books?
No, it comes to us through the books, but to the group. If the group is not put together, it has nowhere to come to. How can you draw the light that reforms if there is no group that studies it, if there is no group that wishes to unite, if there is no group that waits for it to happen, and that this will influence the group? The group is basically that magnet pulling the light that reforms. The group is what needs to be ready in its form towards correction. It needs to be fully awaiting, expecting the correction, discovering the evil in it, the disconnection, and the desired state, which is connection, and to want to shift from the first to the second state by that force called light that reforms. It has to be very clear in the group. Otherwise, who do you invite? What light? What force? The vessel, the kli, must be there first. That's the whole of creation. Why does it evolve after Ein Sof? In order to bring the deficit before the revelation, that the creature will express what he wants to happen. By that, the creature reveals himself. We don't need to discover the creator, the light. The creature needs to discover himself. That it wasn't just created as a little animal, as a small point. That it is created as something independent, with its own free will and accord. That it wants it to be that way. The desire has to be there first. You remember that he explains that the kli must precede the light. That's the main thing.
Sasha Potapov from the Kabbalah Centers Moscow is asking us, will the method of Kabbalah ever become an order will it ever become evident for man's development, the wisdom?
We will put together a calendar and put it on the wall so that you can read, and you'll have a daily to-do list, and you can read it and do it day by day. You can do it that way if you're willing to follow it. We'll make it, please. In the meantime, we can't move to the first page. So what do you mean if it's possible? The whole path is clear and consistent and known in advance. It's all written even. We just don't detect it because we're not in those states.
I don't understand. What are these two kinds of approach to save the drowning from the head or from the body? How are we supposed to approach people today? In which attitude? What's the difference?
I would say that today we're working in the middle line, in both of those approaches. You need the scientific, intellectual approach and a comprehensive explanation on creation, the escalating crisis, man's work, our human history, everything. I see, for instance, on the news, I learned from it how the media present to a person all sorts of phenomena happening in the world, natural phenomena. So they bring all kinds of experts. Yesterday, maybe for 40 minutes, I heard all kinds of experts talking about these phenomena. Does it happen because of the possible eruption of the sun, or a gradual warmth, global warming, and all those things? Does it happen like this or like that? I see that they bring this to the wide audience, and probably those people are experts, and the media work that way. Meaning, you do have to give them wisdom and explain. And you can't just cry with them and give them, oh, I'm with you, we're together, let's do this, let's do that. No, you come and explain, why do you feel bad? You relate to them a little from above, meaning you come with something to teach. And I see that this is how things are built today. You don't just tell people, tomorrow there will be 40 degrees Celsius. No. The weatherman gives you some sort of a whole gamut of things. The wind is going this direction, this is going that direction. So the person can somehow digest the picture of the world. And in general, if we're looking at the internet and all that development, we can't just be whatever we want, wherever we want today and detached from reality. Man, today, whether he likes it or not, is not even aware of how everyone is like a little scientist today. Whether it's with technology or using cell phones, this one works this way, the other one works that way. If you talk to some grandmother from 50 years ago, whether how this works and how that works, she won't understand anything. Today every kid knows that there are radio waves that work this way and other frequencies that work that way and so on. We all rose to a different level of perception of reality, and it very much influences us, the mind over the heart. Meaning the reasonable, rational, scientific persuasion is very powerful. And along with it, we are nevertheless emotional beings. We're a will to receive that feels good or bad. And once I feel bad, depending on how bad or how good I feel, I throw away all my mind. And I just go according to escaping bad states or chasing good states. That's it. If it's beyond the limits of my mind, then this is it. And everyone works that way according to their conditions and the influence of society, and that's where the influence of the environment comes in. So we have to use both of these things. And according to all the signs today, we're in the middle line, meaning using both of these things. But still more through the mind. Because we see it in the audience that comes to us too. When the audience comes to the lectures, as much as they are all willing to get excited, that excitement happens after they hear something, after they understand something, after they tie the good and bad with what they can or can't achieve, and so on. Meaning they must see a picture. They can't just go blindly like people used to follow things or follow people 200 years ago. It doesn't work that way today. Therefore, we need to understand that we are mostly following the Ari, meaning going by the mind. But with the mind, we're also working according to the emotion, because the heart is what understands. The heart is the emotion, and the understanding comes from the emotions. But today, our emotions they prefer to be arranged, structured by the mind. The heart wants the mind to come and fix it and structure it. That's how we work today. And then I'll feel easy and well, because the mind came and structured and arranged my heart. It is something like that today. This is why we were not erasing either approach, but using both of them. And it also depends on what shock waves happening in the world, meaning what's happening in the system of the souls. I mean, this balance between the mind and heart can change, can fluctuate to this or that direction. Yes. Owen. Leon. Yes.
From my own impression, what I see eventually is what perceives a person is what he feels. The mind brings him, it's only a means.
No, if you will only awaken an emotion, after a moment it'll run away. You have to give him a strong, powerful, tight connection that will stay in his mind. So then when he won't feel anything, he'll still have an impression, a reshimo, in the mind, so that by the mind he'll be able to awaken himself to a new sensation. There are times of emotion and times of intellect or mind, and we shouldn't neglect or disrespect this. What will you do after a person loses the feeling from whatever reason? External people come to him, laugh at him. He himself goes through changes. The will to receive fluctuates, goes up and down. What can you do? You have no one to talk to in that state. It's like, say, now I want something sweet. In half an hour I'll want something sour. That's it. I'm a different person. But if I have an intellectual system that ties all these states together and shows me the connection between them and how they bring me to a certain purpose, and I can manage in these states and be above them and so on, looking at them as a means, not just feeling something and that feeling controls me, but if I'm feeling something, there's mind in it too. If I understand something, there's an emotion in it too. I work in this combination, like the middle line, as we said, and then for sure I don't lose myself.
Nonetheless, I think if someone will look through external eyes at our organization, at least there's a lot of brains here. The emotions only,
Come to the Tuesday lectures, the public lectures that I'm giving here. Look how many men and women and different ages of people come and see what are they drawn to more, the emotion or the mind? The mind. Including the women, same thing. They want to understand more. If you ask them, they want to know the preface of the introduction to the 10 Sefirot. They want to know the structure of the world. It takes a very important part in their eyes, knowing the system.
A question about a different topic, but the same subject. Today we're opening many physical Kabbalah centers all over Israel, and we try to bring Kabbalah to any person in Israel. It reminds me about how the Baal Shem Tov did it, and there's a great difference, but what can we say about that?
Well, I don't have anything to say, but we're opening these centers like Baal Shem Tov did, but we're bringing both things there, both studying the teaching, the preface, the structure of the world, and so on, and also how to bring a person to correct himself by the study. We bring both things. The Ari, of course, didn't manage to open all the study centers and disseminate the wisdom of Kabbalah and so on. He didn't have any opportunity to do it. In a year and a half, he finished all he did, and he passed away. That's it. There was no one to continue with. You understand, if there was a group, an organization, or something, he would stay. He said it himself before he passed away. This is why he didn't do it. We externally look like what Baal Shem Tov did. We wish to be like what he did. like he was. But also, he didn't just open things through the emotion only. No, he had his whole Torah, his whole teaching. Open the books of original Hasidism and see. He talks about the 5 worlds, the 10 Sfirot, all the qualities, their explanation, everything. Look what all the students of Baal Shem Tov wrote, all those who were the chiefs of the different Hasidic groups. Look at the interpretations on the Torah and how it talks about the work of the Creator, the pillar of the light, the 430 lights, all those things. You understand what kind of Kabbalah teachings are there?
And final question. Many times when you talk about the Baal Shem Tov, you say that he left different external signs. Not that he left, but through the external symbols and signs, he let the masses touch internality. It's the same with us?
No, every time has its role. He faced the problem of how to wake up the people, how to bring them to internality. So through the externality, penetrating all those symbols and rituals and signs, he organized the connection between the external things to the internal things. And in that way, of course, there's a great difference. It's not the same thing, but just to explain, in the same way, religions spread. Because the common people need all kinds of expressions, all kinds of actions, gatherings, discussions, dances, songs, all sorts of things. And by that, you are tying them to some new process. The mind comes later, if it comes at all, and to how many people. But first it works like this. This is how all everything that you want to give to the masses must spread externally, first as just customs, new type of customs. Because here you can't rely on something that will require great scrutinies in their minds. We live in a different era, though. There's an escalating global crisis, there's an integral system, there's what's happening with the internet and everything that, Baal Shem Tov had to move from one village to another. And there's an awakening of the hearts as well. It's a different story completely. But this is why the method is revealed today as an internal thing. Externally, people won't respond to it at all, won't react to it even. What external things you can give to the people so they will believe that they'll get something out of it? They'll laugh at you. But back then, using that, he could really penetrate deeper. Yes, Gilad?
Let's say I have a child born today, 2010. I want him to be happy in this generation, to prepare him for him to be happy in this world. How do I have to bring him up? How to lead him to it?
I don't know. Give him an example. Well, I'm going to post on my blog an example of how my grandson tries talking on the phone. He doesn't know what a phone is. He only knows that people take it, put it next to their ear and talk. So he follows the same example, puts it next to his ear and walks around the room and talks to it. Look how detached from reality this thing is. He's not talking to anyone. It's all... What I'm saying is that this is called the teaching of monkeys, meaning this is how we learn. We learn from external examples mindlessly, without any understanding. So if you're asking about the young generation, you have to prepare examples by which you want them to grow, according to the examples, and that's it. You need to put them in a society from which they'll take an example of not how to talk to a mobile phone, but good, positive examples.
How is it possible to give an example for the right kind of work of the right combination of mind and heart? Again, a mobile phone is something external. Of course, the child will imitate it. How can you give an example of something more internal?
Give them the ability to go through all kinds of states, and then later judge it together, and then gradually it'll expand from the individual to the collective. Or even before making actions, let's say, let's plan the next half an hour. We want it to go like this or like that. And then you try to, as if, build their new world together with them. So you put them in a place and you tell them, okay, how do we organize ourselves? How do we play with each other? How do we talk to each other? And then everyone criticizes oneself. Did we make it? Will we do it in a way that works well? Maybe you can even film them and show them later what happened and things like that. The important thing is the sense of inspection. Looking at everything from a side. That's the hardest thing. This is why Baal HaSulam really respects the materialistic psychology. And with this, we will conclude.
Announcements. All of us together climbing to the next degree in the south. 18th of August, 6:15. We're ascending to the next degree, and now a short clip. The desert was never as hot, and soon it will become even warmer. It's like many power plants all connected together. I don't know how to describe it. I'm exploding. All of us together in the south, meeting in one place, ascending to the next degree of connection. I don't know how to explain it. I really believe and hope that today we're going to do this together. All of us together in the south. 6:30. We're meeting at 6:30. Or get on co.il. We're inviting you to the new site of building our social system on kbb1.com. Take part in building the daily questionnaires, bring up ideas, ask questions, the new site for building our spiritual environment. Internet, kbb1.com. The Last Generation is performing tomorrow in Be'er Sheva. For further details on co.il, thank you very much and have a great day and a great night.
מסתכלים על הגופים במקום בנשמות, כולם רוצים רק לעצמם, רוצים בלי שאלות. השנאה שמתגברת, הקנאה והדמעות, רוצים לצאת מהקופסה, להתעורר, כי ככה אי אפשר לחיות. אבל קיימת עוד תקווה שנתקן את הכוונה, נחזור לחיות באהבה בינינו, אם נאמר כולנו יחד אמן. נחזור להיות כולנו חלקים של השלם. נשמה ונתעורר מהחלום. המציאות והתסכול רק מתגבר, לא מוצאים את האיזון ובתוכנו המשבר, מסביבנו אסונות, תאונות ומלחמות, וזה לא ייפסק אם לא נאחד את הרצונות. אבל קיימת עוד תקווה שנתקן את הכוונה, נחזור לחיות באהבה בינינו, אם נאמר כולנו יחד